Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, first, good evening and welcome to Update on Monday, the 20th of January, a half-hour roundup of what's been happening news-wise here on the Isle of Man and looking a little further afield today as well. So coming up, we've got some of the concerns about proposed minimum wage increases addressed by the Treasury Minister. We'll hear about the appointment of the new Gambling Supervision Commission CEO and some good news for the island as it makes the list of one of the best places to travel to in 2025. And as we speak, the inauguration of Donald Trump is underway in America. What might that mean for the Isle of Man? As ever, we'll keep an eye on the traffic and travel as well. And if you would like to get in touch, you can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. We'll start with a news headline roundup with Lewis. Fastamai.
There's no new updates from Manx Care regarding negotiations with the British Medical Association just days ahead of a planned walkout by doctors. Medical professionals are striking for 48 hours in a row over pay from Wednesday morning. A final decision was expected today. There are hard times facing the island's construction industry.
There are some challenges and we recognise that.
That's Enterprise Minister Tim Johnston reacting to a report from Construction Isle of Man highlighting a significant slowdown in the sector. It's based on a survey carried out at the end of last year, which the body says paints a bleak picture. Landlords are being asked to contribute to a new homelessness survey, which has been launched on the Isle of Man. It's part of government's efforts to eliminate the issue on the island. The 25-question survey is part of the homelessness strategy and is being carried out by Public Health. And the Isle of Man has been named as one of the 25 best places to travel in 2025 by BBC Travel. We've been placed under the same spotlight as the likes of Japan, Italy and Greenland. In the latest international news, Donald Trump is being sworn in as the 47th US president. Hundreds of guests are gathered in the Capitol building after the ceremony was moved indoors to combat the cold weather. Incoming White House officials have confirmed the new president's planning to immediately sign 15 executive orders. The man who killed 3 young girls in Southport last summer has pleaded guilty to all of the charges against him on the first day of his trial. 18-year-old Axel Rudabakana also admitted the attempted murder of 8 other children and 2 adults. And Chris Kamara will join fans of the club he played for and managed in learning to sing opera. A choir's been made up of Bradford supporters as part of the city's Year of Culture celebrations. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thank you very much indeed, Lewis. Now the latest weather with Manx Glass and Glazing. Fairly dry but a bit cloudy tonight, although some clear intervals may develop at times. Light winds, temperatures around 4 Celsius. And then again tomorrow, mainly dry, variable and at times large amounts of cloud. There might be the small risk of some patchy light rain or drizzle. Winds will be light, best temperatures 8 Celsius. Sunset this evening was at 4:37. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 8:23.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
TE Carbon provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown or at Broadway, Douglas or call 844 440. TE Carbon, here when you need us.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's just coming up to 5:05. We're watching the scenes on the BBC of Donald Trump being sworn in as the 47th US president. It signals the start of his second four-year term. But what does this all mean, potentially, for the Isle of Man? Well, our political correspondent Phil Gaughan has been talking to former government PR officer Alistair Ramsey and Jed Power of the Manx Labour Party.
I'm certainly not an expert on the international scene, but I would have thought that on the face of it, it would make the world a lot more unstable. But it's the question with Trump is, I guess, is he genuinely nuts, or is it all part of a kind of clever ploy?
I'll take a different slant. I deal with Americans regularly. I was speaking with one yesterday who happened to be on the island, and they're pleased about the installation of Trump. And if you refer to his previous term, where maybe we didn't have the problems regarding conflicts around the world at that time. I'm just speaking off the top of my head here, but the economy in the USA was much more favourable for certain types of society. So we'll just wait and see. But he's very watchable. The election was fascinating. It really was. And for him to come in with a landslide like that, he's got the support of the nation. As for the impact on the Isle of Man, we've got to be looking over our shoulders for any tax controls that could come in, anything relating to our gaming sector and so forth, and trade, and things that may impact the UK as well.
Do we, in the Isle of Man, need a system-wrecking politician like Donald Trump, someone who is not prepared to accept the norms and conventions of political life?
A disruptor. A populist disruptor. Well, we had Peter Carron in the past, didn't we? Maybe the time is right now. If the public are disenchanted, there's been a lot of changes in the island. There's a feeling that the place is changing a lot. Maybe that could emerge. We'll see.
That was Alistair Ramsey, former government PR officer, and also Jed Power from the Manx Labour Party, talking to Phil Gaughan. Well, Siobhan from the newsroom is with me now. Siobhan did an American Studies degree. She's dusted that off and is just going to talk through some of the proceedings that we're watching at the moment. But the thing that strikes me, Siobhan, just seeing these images on the BBC, is it's a very different swearing in than we'd see here in the Isle of Man or certainly in the UK. There's almost a spectacle about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're just watching sort of military bands singing there, aren't we? I suppose, yeah, in the UK, the incoming Prime Minister kind of goes to the King and, shakes his hand, and then that's kind of it. Like, they go to Downing Street and maybe give a speech. Yeah, it is a spectacle. They've been running a bit behind, but Donald J. Trump is now officially the 47th president. So if you've been watching the pictures on the BBC or any of the news channels, they've been in the Capitol Rotunda today. The inauguration proceedings, they normally take place outside the Capitol building, but basically they've had this Arctic snap in the last week, and so it was decided last week really that Donald Trump said we'll move it inside. That's not totally out of the ordinary. It doesn't always have to take place outside, but it kind of heightens the spectacle a little bit when they're all squeezed into that room. He will now soon give an inaugural address. He'll set out some of his goals for the next 4 years. He'll sign some key documents then in the President's Room, which is near the Senate chamber in that building they're in, and then he'll head for lunch. That normally is followed by a parade down the Capitol, like the National Mall, essentially, from the Capitol towards the Washington Monument there. But that has been called off because of the weather. So instead, it's been moved into the Capital One Arena, which is a professional, basically a basketball and hockey venue in downtown Washington. It's about a mile and a half away from where they are right now. I guess there's a couple of interesting things to note today. Amongst all the former presidents and dignitaries that are there are several tech billionaires, from Elon Musk to Mark Zuckerberg. Lindy Lee from the Trump Inaugural Committee says influential business leaders were desperate to be seen at the event.
All of these people, you see all these tech bro billionaires, including Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, Jeff Bezos, they've flocked to DC in order to essentially bend the knee and to show that they are willing to play ball with the incoming administration.
That is Lindy Lee from the Trump Inaugural Committee. So, Siobhan, what other elements of this have been making the headlines today?
So other things happened before the events even got underway today. So outgoing President Joe Biden's issued a series of preemptive pardons for people Mr. Trump might see as enemies. They include Dr. Anthony Fauci, you might remember, was kind of in charge of the whole COVID response in America during Trump's first presidency. The other thing later on, though, to watch out for will come at the event that I mentioned before at the Capital One Arena. So a desk has been set up in the middle of the arena this morning, and it's been speculated that he's going to sit there and sign a number of executive orders. An executive order is basically a written order issued by the president to the federal government, which does not require congressional approval. So it's not unusual for them to be signed in front of a small audience. Usually it's a gathering of the press. It will be unusual for it to happen in an arena full of people. Trump's sort of incoming officials have said that he's expected to sign more than 200 executive actions today. That will include about 15 executive orders. He's promised to do a whole range of things: to ramp up artificial intelligence programs, form the Department of Government Efficiency, which you'll remember Elon Musk is going to oversee, direct the military to create an Iron Dome missile defence shield, and he's even said he'll make records available related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963. So he's basically promising to reverse 4 years of, quote, American decline, and he's also saying he'll declare a state of emergency on the US border. So now we just kind of have to watch on.
We certainly do. He is speaking at the moment, so all his words will be reported in the coming hours. Siobhan, thank you very much indeed. It's just coming up to 11 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention back to the Isle of Man, and the Isle of Man's first Chief Minister actually has been reflecting on how government operates nearly 30 years after holding the position. Sir Miles Walker appeared before the Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Justice Committee to share his views on Tynwald's current structure compared to his time leading Manx politics. Former Minister and Committee member Laurie Hooper asked how election processes could be improved to give voters a clearer idea of the island's potential direction under the next administration. And committee member Stu Peters sought Sir Miles's perspective on claims that the civil service holds too much power.
I think under the old system, civil servants were very often working with one department for the whole of their career. And I know as far as the local government board was concerned, when I was there, we used to interview civil servants to serve the department. That move from that sort of employment regime to a unified civil service, which I have to say I was fully in favour of. I think government need the best people possible working within it as a civil service. And I think to have a structure where you can move from department to department and move up through the employment opportunities and so on is very important. And I think one of the things that saddens me now, and I know we have a unified civil service, but the way that it's working out and the lack of senior civil servants who are homebred, if you like, and have come up through the service. And I find that as somebody outside looking in quite concerning. I think if we can rear our own top people, then they have better understanding of the island, and I'm not going to say do a better job because I don't know those that are in post at the moment, but it just saddens me that not many of them appear to be have come up through our civil service. And it's so important that we have good people. So important to have good people.
That is Sir Miles Walker, the Isle of Man's first Chief Minister, speaking at the Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Justice Committee this afternoon. 13.5 minutes past 5. Now, we've not been officially told, as we know, those who've qualified to go forward to the next stage of the Legislative Council election process. But we do know that Kerry Sharp, the existing MLC, is one of the people who has put her name forward to try and resume her seat. And she says her focus originally on issues affecting children opened the way for her entry into the political arena. Here's John Moss.
Ms Sharp, the current children's champion, has worked in various arms of the media. Seeing questions that needed answers has helped her, she told Phil Gaughan in Manx Radio's Agenda programme.
When you're working in television and you're, say, interviewing people, you're listening to members of the public and you're really listening, and then you're editing and you're listening back to what they've said. And you often have the experience as a TV director where people will say afterwards, I've never told anyone that before. And that's something that I've heard many times with members of the public who've come to talk to me about different issues. Sometimes they find that just talking about it to someone who is in authority can solve an issue that they've been sort of hanging on to for years and years and years, and actually all they needed was to be listened to. Another skill that I've brought with me is one of being able to have vision. So I think I have found in the past that sometimes that's been a bit lacking in government, and I'm not blaming people who work in government. It's very difficult because whenever you try to do something, someone will always say, well, you can't do that because you don't have the vires, you don't have this, you don't have the budget, you don't have that. And so it's kind of difficult to have a vision. When you're a member of a department, you really are nose to the grindstone. You're in a lot of meetings, you're reviewing a lot of information all the time. It doesn't mean to say that you can't then keep moving things forward while you're in the department. You can. But I found that since I haven't been in a department, I've been able to kind of look at more at the world of how we look after our children in care and care leavers, young carers, children with complex needs. I have been able to look at it with a bit more perspective, I think. I'm really keen to remove any barriers that we have for people who've got disabilities who might want to get involved with politics. Because I think, obviously, the more diverse you get at Tynwald, the better decisions that you can get made.
That is Kerry Sharp, MLC, who's seeking re-election to the Legislative Council. You can hear much more with her discussion after Update this evening. Agenda with Phil is coming up at 5:30. And the election sitting for the Legislative Council will be in the House of Keys on March the 4th.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, nothing to report on the police pages, which is good news. So hopefully you're okay on your drive home. Just some of the usual traffic lights and whatever around the island. You can find a full list of them at manxradio.com. All pretty good down at the airport. And the latest from the steam packet, the Manxman due into Douglas at around 5:30, heading out to Heysham again at 7:15.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
It's 17 minutes past 5. The Isle of Man Gambling Supervision Commission has announced the appointment of Mark Rutherford as its new Chief Executive Officer. Now, he's been with the Commission for 15 years and comes to this role with a mandate to uphold the island's regulatory standards for, among other things, gambling and medicinal cannabis. Amy Griffiths has more details.
As CEO, Mark Rutherford aims to strengthen the Isle of Man's defences against financial crime and adapt regulatory frameworks to meet evolving challenges. His experience includes a tenure as Director of Policy and Legislation at the GSC, and earlier service in the Income Tax Division. Acting Chair of the GSC, David Butterworth, says Mark's extensive experience and clear vision for continuous improvement come at a critical time. He's a valuable asset, committed to strengthening our regulatory approach and ensuring the Isle of Man remains a leader in the sector. Mr Rutherford says, I'm embarking on an ambitious programme of reform to reinforce our supervisory powers, address emerging risks and maintain our reputation as a trusted jurisdiction. Collaboration with international and domestic partners will remain vital to disrupting criminal activity and aligning with global standards. The appointment's also been welcomed by the Department of Enterprise's Digital Isle of Man agency. It's developing what it describes as a comprehensive e-gaming strategy aimed at driving growth, addressing market challenges and boosting confidence in the sector. CEO of Digital Isle of Man, Lyle Raxall, says Mark's leadership comes at a pivotal moment for the Isle of Man's e-gaming sector, Effective regulation is essential to maintaining the island's competitive edge and reputation as a trusted jurisdiction for gambling and related industries. He goes on to say that Mark's expertise align with our goals to refine regulation and position the island as a destination for high-quality e-gaming businesses.
Amy Griffiths reporting on the Isle of Man Gambling Supervision Commission's new CEO, Mark Rutherford. Coming up to 5:19. Now, there are concerns about what impact a proposed two-part increase in minimum wage would have on island businesses. Next month, Tynwald will be asked to approve the plans, and these would align the rate with the living wage, which is £13.05, by October. In light of this, the Chamber of Commerce is urging government to look at increasing tax thresholds for lower paid workers. Lewis has been talking to Treasury Minister Alex Allinson and asked why this move is being considered at a time when many businesses appear to be closing their doors over here.
I think when you look at overall at the Isle of Man economy, we still have quite a vibrant economy. We still have new shops, new businesses opening. We have record low unemployment, although we're monitoring that quite carefully at the moment. We have record high level of vacancies as well. And you do see seasonal variation, particularly in hospitality and leisure and retail. But I'm optimistic in terms of the general parameters of our economy that it will continue to remain vibrant and to remain sustainable going forward this year. What government's role is really to enable businesses to do well by creating the right environment. And that's what we're doing in terms of the minimum wage recommendations coming forward to Tynwald, in terms of putting more money in people's pockets to spend locally. That's what we'll be doing in the budget, to put more money in workers and for working families in their pockets to spend locally, and actually use some of the facilities and some of the excellent businesses we have on our high streets.
Some businesses perhaps on the island might say, if you want to generate the right environment, as you mentioned there, then take a look at the VAT threshold. Is there any wiggle room on that?
In terms of VAT, this is a tax in terms of goods and services. It's not a tax on the provider of those, it's a tax on the purchaser. And it's a major component of government income, over a third. We are still going through a recalculation of that with the UK government. And I've signalled quite clearly that there is no current plans to alter the VAT agreement. We haven't confirmed that with the UK, and any changes to that would need further consultation with Treasury across. What we need to look at is the overall cost of doing business on the Isle of Man in terms of things like national insurance, in terms of rates, in terms of carriage of goods and services with the steam packet, and we are addressing that. I will be making some budget announcements in terms of that, but also we've seen the steam packet company look at their fares, particularly for imports and exports for producers here. And these are part of a coherent economic strategy to maintain that vibrant community that we need, both for people who live here, but also for the visitor economy as well.
That is Treasury Minister Dr Alex Allinson talking to Lewis there. Much more to that interview. You can hear it in full as a Manx newscast at manxradio.com. 5:22. Some good news now. The Isle of Man has been named as one of the 25 best places to travel to in 2025 by BBC Travel. Siobhan has been taking a look at who else made the cut.
BBC Travel is a global platform dedicated to inspiring and informing travellers with expertly curated content about destinations around the world. In their inaugural guide to the best places to travel this year, BBC Travel says it wanted to highlight destinations that not only offer incredible travel experiences, but also use tourism to support local communities, protect the environment, or preserve their unique cultural heritage. Amongst the other locations listed are Canada, Italy, Greenland, Morocco and Sri Lanka. The list was compiled using input from BBC Travel journalists and some of the world's leading sustainable travel authorities. They include Sustainable Travel International, the United Nations World Travel Organization, and the World Travel and Tourism Council. Chief Executive of Visit Isle of Man, Deborah Heather, says the accolade shows the island packs a punch. In a statement, she said, securing a place alongside coveted destinations such as Japan, Dominica and Australia, this recognition adds to our growing collection of accolades and is a further testament to the Isle of Man's extraordinary offering. As the world's only entire biosphere nation, we are committed to preserving and showcasing the distinct character of the Isle of Man, building momentum as we continue to promote the island to the global tourism stage. From our unparalleled beauty and unique heritage and culture, the Isle of Man packs a punch, and we look forward to welcoming visitors to experience the magic of our island for themselves this year. You can find the full list of all the locations you should be visiting in 2025 at manxradio.com.
Siobhan reporting there on the 25 best places to travel to in 2025, and of course the Isle of Man is up there on the list. 24 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to sport now and welcome someone who's been travelling himself over the past few weeks. Darren, welcome back. Lots happening sports-wise?
Yeah, good evening. FC Isle of Man's losing streak continued at the weekend as the Ravens lost 2-1 to Padiham in the North West Counties Football League. Jacob Crook scored to give the away side an early lead in Burnley, but a second-half fight back from the home team saw Padiham claim the 3 points. The result means FC Isle of Man stayed 9th in place in the table, but are now 4 points off the playoff places, having played more games than their rivals. Paul Jones's men will next play on the 25th of January as they host AFC Liverpool. Staying with football, and the first round of the Woods Cup take place at the weekend. Braddon and Old Boys both progressed after convincing wins, while Rycob needed penalties to beat Malou. In the Kind of Life Premier League, Peel maintained their lead at the top of the table after a 3-0 victory over St George's. Elsewhere, Colby beat Poole Road 3-1 in the only fixture of the Arden and Druggan Division 2 and move up to third in the table. On to hockey, in the men and ladies leagues continued on Saturday. In the men's Premier League, Backers, Vikings and Valkyries A are all tied on 4 points after 2 games. Backers are the pick of the bunch so far, though, after following up their 9-1 victory over Harlequins with a 10-0 win over Valkyrs. For the ladies, Castletown A has taken the lead at the top of the table, while champions Vikings A have kicked off their season after beating Harlequins. In cycling, Becky Story and Lizzie Holden took to the road for the first time in 2025. The Manx pair competed at the Tour Down Under in Australia at the weekend, and Story of Team Picnic Post NL finished at the highest of the two with a 30th place finish at the general classification. Meanwhile, Holden of UAE Team ADQ finished not far below in 35th. And Michael Dunlop was recognised at the Adelaide Irish Motorbike Awards over the weekend. The 29-time TT racer was awarded Road Race of the Year for 2024.
Thank you very much indeed, Darren. Something else that happened at the weekend was the Andreas Racing Association dinner, with so many of the local talent in motorcycle racing over here recognised. It was an absolutely brilliant event. Incidentally, today apparently is Blue Monday. It's allegedly the most depressing day of the year. Here at Max Radio, we went to try and find out what helps you beat the January blues. And apparently swimming in the sea is a top favourite for many people. If you go to the Max Radio website and our Facebook page, you can see a video there about people talking about why swimming in the sea is so good. And actually, Blue Monday was thought up by a travel company 10 years ago as a PR stunt, apparently. That was to promote their winter deals. But it's now been adopted to promote good mental health and self-care. And if you are thinking about swimming in the sea, you can always head up to Ramsey, because last week that new changing hut on the southern beach shelter was opened there for the community to use. So not just if you're swimming, you can sit in there and watch people as they swim if that's more your thing. That is all from Update this evening. Agenda with Phil Gaughan is next. As say, he will be talking to Kerry Sharp, MLC, who's hoping to regain her seat in Ledgeco when the election happens in March. Chris Kinney will then be here live at 6 with Greatest Hits. Ian Cottier has Time for Brass at 9, and Dave Moore will be with you from 10 with After Hours. Do join us again from 6 in the morning with Ben on Breakfast. Lots to come in that programme, and Update will be back with you from 5 tomorrow. Have a great evening.